Hey guys, and welcome back to another Conan Exiles video. Today we are building a pod base, a design meant to be easy to use on troublesome terrain. The requirements for this build are on screen now. I mainly use Namidian with some stable elements, but you could use basically whatever material you like. So without further ado, let's get started. Firstly, I started off with, of course, the base plate. This is a really small and simple design that takes up very little actual floor space, as most of this build will be up in the air. Conan has some pretty difficult terrain, and if you wanted to build somewhere less frequented, like the mountains, it can be pretty tough at times. This design is meant to remedy that issue. Once the base plate was complete, I started to build up the walls. I placed some pillars in the centre to support the build as it rises, and then the walls went up. I built up 3 tiles, creating decorative doorways on the second tile that I covered with vaulted ceilings to create a little visual depth. I capped off the 3 tiles with ceilings, finished off the doorways, and then went up 7 tiles from the ceilings. I then placed some vaulted and triangle ceilings on the 6th tile to set up the transition into the pods. To finish it off, I built walls on the exterior of that ring and capped it off entirely with ceilings. From here, I began on the pods. Each pod will be the same size as the central 2-tier circle, minus the cutout for the stairs. This build is very much function over form, designed to give you a good amount of space for your workstations and storage without a large ground footprint. Unfortunately, these pods will need pillar support, but by carefully placing pillars beneath the ceilings and running them down, you can squeeze out just enough stability so you can build this design without having pillars spammed everywhere. As I finished the first pod, I moved down 3 tiles and began on the next layer of pods. It will be almost identical to the top layer, aside from the raised central section, which will be flat on the lower layer. This build has pods on the sides and rear for a total of 6 across 2 levels. I connected these pods together with star-shaped connectors on the top, which allows a good amount of room between the pods so you don't have to squeeze through tight corridors. Once I'd finished off the top layer of pods, I moved down to the lower layer, replicating the same layout as I created on the top side. Back on the top layer, I used an elevator to connect down to the entry platform below, and then used stable gate frames and struts to form open 2-tile walls, which I made safe using stable fences. I then used both variants of those stable fences to cover the perimeter of each pod to make sure you don't accidentally fall off. I did the same on the bottom too, interspersing both variants of the fence pieces for a bit of visual variety. I added some vaulted ceilings below the central connector of the lower level, and then added Namidian roof pieces to the bottom transition into the shaft of the tower. I then used Namidian roof pieces underneath the lower level pods to give them a bit more shape and style. Additions like this are pretty much all beautification, so if you're not really caring for the aesthetics, you can just omit them. Finally, I placed a ring of Namidian ceilings above the central compartment and used Namidian roof pieces to enclose that area, with some stable fences on top for visual detail. Finally, when the shot of the build was done, it was then time to, of course, furnish. I've decorated the build with some light sources and a couple of banners, but as this is designed for function, I've kept this stuff fairly simple on the deco front. Reaching the top, the central chamber is your pretty standard storage and respawn point. This could also be a good place for a transitory stone, though it'd be a little tight, and the area can probably hold up to 3 or 4 beds alternatively for you and your clanmates. Stepping down onto the upper layer, each pod holds a good amount of workstations with plenty of room for storage around the workstations and on the connectors between each pod. On the lower level, there is again plenty of room for storage and workstations, though a tighter walk around the central connector. This base does require a bit of experimentation for workbench placement, but it can definitely work. It just wouldn't work too well with larger items like the golem assembly station or a map room. And there we have it, a pod base designed for troublesome terrain. As I listed in the requirements, you can use basically any material you like here, and it should work on almost any troublesome terrain. I replicated this build with the Yamatai set, and it works perfectly well on terrain that would be difficult for a normal base design. Of course, if this isn't enough room for you, you could build 2 or 3 of these and connect them together for an even larger space. As always, if you have any suggestions that you'd like to see me tackle for future builds, do let me know. I haven't done any viewer requests in a while, but I'd definitely like to get back to doing some more of those. Of course, a massive thanks to our wonderful esteemed coffee cultists for continuing to support the channel over on Patreon. Thanks for watching, take care, and I'll see you soon.